Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I am the Divine One and I'm bringing you yet another assortment. Hey y'all, welcome back. Let me give a shout out to the fam. Whether you're new here or you've been riding with me, you already know the vibes. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's dive right in. Because today, it's about to get real. We're talking about tariffs, Trump voters, and the whole mess that comes with them. You know what time it is? It's find out season, okay? The Leopards are feasting right now. The Leopards have had brunch, a Vegas-style buffet, and a whole wedding reception, and now it's time for entertainment. So watch these TikToks, and there will be commentary afterwards. Let's go.
Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Watch this economics professor explain Trump's tariffs.
Well, the income tax currently costs the American people $2.4 trillion a year. Trump proposes to replace it with tariffs of 20% on everybody but China, who gets an extra special 60% tariff. Altogether, that might bring in about $900 billion a year. This would grow America's economy like rocket fuel. Near term, we're talking a 20% increase in the economy, so about a $15,000 raise for the typical American family. Note that's on top of the $18,000 of income tax you would no longer have to pay. Knock off $3,000 for the tariffs and you get about $30,000 in additional income for the typical American family, close to $3,000 per month. We might expect a doubling of annual economic growth. So 5% growth would be the new normal. Your kids would be 3 times richer than you, as it used to work in America. If we simply copy countries like Singapore, we might save around about $2 trillion or more. If a president can sell it to American voters, $30,000 is a chunk of change, Congress will go along out of sheer self-preservation. Plus, the bake sales would be lit.
That's economics professor Dr. Peter St. Onge, PhD, explaining exactly how replacing the income tax with tariffs would help all of Americans, especially middle and lower class Americans. Of course, the elite wouldn't want us getting $30,000 extra a year and securing our wealth for our children. Doesn't that sound like it would make America great again? Because that's what it sounds like to me, and if voting for Trump gives me any shot at accessing the opportunities my parents had access to, economically speaking, then yeah, I'm gonna vote for him. Trump 2024.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no fucking idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive, and you have American products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy foreign, shit's going to be more expensive. But if you're willing to buy the American product, which is actually employing people here in the U.S., they actually have to pay their employees a real wage with real benefits and keeping the money here in the United States economy, yeah, you're going to get a better price if you go with the American companies. So, Aaron, I just want to point out that this is the point. Like, this is what we expect to happen. Foreign shit, more expensive. American made, lower priced. And yes, Aaron, this is what we voted for.
So I have a question for all of the people that voted for Trump. I have a question. With all of the companies coming out right now saying that they are going to pass the cost of the tariffs onto the consumer, what are you thinking? What are your plans? What are we going to do about that? Because if our prices continue to rise, we are all booked. So I just want to know, like, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And my other question is, what are we going to do if the companies don't bend? What are we going to do if the companies don't bend? and they just keep raising prices? I genuinely want somebody to tell me, because I am concerned.
All right, this is for you people who think that tariffs are going to reduce prices in the United States. Axios came out with an article the other day that listed 5 companies, I think it's 5 at least, that said they're going to raise prices. Are you ready? Number 1, Walmart. The Walmart CEO said they never want to raise prices, but there will probably be cases where prices go up for consumers. There's one. Lowe's is another one. They said that 40% of their goods come from outside of the country, so there will be tariffs on those, so then therefore prices will go up at Lowe's. AutoZone. The AutoZone CEO said that if we get tariffs, we will pass them along to the consumers. Columbia Sportswear is another one, and Stanley Black & Decker. So the notion that tariffs are going to reduce prices is absurd. There's 5 massive companies right there, all highly profitable companies, saying that if Trump puts tariffs in place, the goods on their, the cost of the goods in their businesses are going to go up. I guess that means some people are about to experience the old FAFO for voting for Trump, and they just asked for higher prices, I guess. Ugh.
The higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the country.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's 2 ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're going to come in.
A tariff, generally speaking, from an inflation perspective, we think of as a one-time increase in prices. So if you have a 1% tariff, you could think of it as a 1% increase in prices of those goods that are subjected to the tariff. That by itself is not inflationary over the long run. It's a one-time change in the price level. Where it becomes complicated is how the other country responds. So if there's a tit for tat and an increase in tariffs from the U.S., a response from other countries, and it goes back and forth, then you could imagine a longer-term inflationary impact. And so right now, as I said a moment ago, it's uncertain what the proposal will be, what will get implemented, and then, importantly, how other countries will respond. Right now, we're all just guessing, and so I can't opine one way or the other.
Tariffs are like a national sales tax. They add to the cost of goods, whether it's 10%, 20%, 100%, 200%. But don't believe me. Let's look at some history here. Trump actually imposed a bunch of tariffs, as you'll recall, including on laundry machines. Back in January of 2018, he put a tariff on a laundry machine, average cost $750. It added $200 to the cost of the laundry machine. But then President Biden allowed that tariff to expire. And so what happened? The price of laundry machines fell by $75, which meant that the increase in laundry machines, which had way outstripped inflation, actually ended up being lower than the average inflation rate in the rest of the country. Let's look at another historical example, the Great Depression. I think a lot of us studied in school that the Great Depression was either caused or exacerbated by tariffs. Actually, it wasn't caused by it, it was exacerbated by it is the answer. Smoot-Hawley tariffs were passed in January 1930. The economy was already in a recession. Look how bad it was. I'm not going to say the tariffs are all of this, but they certainly didn't help, and they actually hurt. Then the tariffs are removed by FDR in 1934. These were put on by Hoover. FDR removes them, and the economy is growing again. Again, not all because of tariffs, but I think every economist in the mainstream would tell you those tariffs and every other tariff hurt economic growth.
Trump's plan includes a 60% tariff on China and a 10% tariff on all other imports. Based on 2023 import data, this would generate tariff revenue of about $0.6 trillion annually, which would only cover 27% of the $2.4 trillion revenue needed to replace individual income taxes. And that's assuming that imports stay constant, which would kind of defeat the whole purpose of tariffs, which is bringing back manufacturing here. Now, being fully funded by tariffs used to work when the federal government was a lot smaller. Up until the introduction of the individual income tax and the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, federal spending was less than 10% of GDP, which could be funded by tariffs. Now, today, total spending is close to 25% of GDP. So unless Elon and Vivek do some major gutting over at Doge, I don't think tariffs can feasibly replace income taxes.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no fucking idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive, and you have American products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy foreign, shit's going to be more expensive. But if you're willing to buy the American product, which is actually employing people here in the US, they actually have to pay their employees a real wage with real benefits and keeping the money here in the United States economy, yeah, you're going to get a better price if you go with the American companies. So Aaron, I just want to point out that this is the point. Like, this is what we expect to happen. Foreign shit, more expensive. American made, lower priced. And yes, Aaron, this is what we voted for.
Everyone, breaking news again. Donald Trump has officially announced his tariff policy, which is not good for the American consumer. He has announced a 25% tariff on all goods coming from Mexico and in Canada, and a 35% tariff on goods coming from China. These tariffs will have a negative effect on our goods in this country and will be brought down to the American consumer, which we will have no choice. It may take a little bit for these tariffs to feel the pinch of these tariffs, but once Donald Trump is in office and they are in effect, you will feel it. Walmart and Lowe's announced that they have no choice but to raise prices when these tariffs go in play. So America, once again, you voted for this man. He told you what he's going to do, and he is doing it. I can't say it enough. This is what he's all about.
You made a name for yourself taking out your whiteboard. Don't suppose you have a whiteboard with you at committee hearings. And Donald Trump is planning a lot. I mean, this is now what we got to look at and look at the impact of. Across the board tariffs, tax cuts for the wealthy. Explain to us in only the way you can what's coming.
Yep. So I do have a whiteboard this morning. It's always a little terrifying to do this on live TV, I will confess. But let me say a few things Donald Trump has said he's going to do. So he made very clear that one of the things he wanted to do was put tariffs on goods coming into the United States. What does this lead to? It leads to higher costs for consumers. Just straight up. When companies pay more for things, the inputs into their goods, they pass that along to us straight away. The other thing he said he's going to do is he said he's going to weaken antitrust. Now, the whole point of antitrust, which was something I think the Biden administration did really, really well, is to create competition. And guess what competition does? It lowers prices. So if you weaken antitrust, you're going to see higher costs for consumers. The third thing is he said he's going to deport workers. Well, guess what the problem with that is? If you deport workers or you reduce immigration in areas where we need workers, then labor costs go up for businesses. And look, what do businesses do? They pass that along to consumers with regard to higher costs. So I think there's a real disconnect between how voters perceived Donald Trump's economic plan and what we have in store for us, which is, I fear, higher costs on virtually everything.
So here's the thing. Before the election, Trump supporters couldn't stop running their mouths. Oh, he's bringing back jobs. He's going to lower prices. He's saving America. But fast forward to post-election, and what's trending on Google? Tariffs. I thought they said they did all their research. All of those, I did my research. Folks scrambling to figure out what the hell they voted for. Let me make it plain. You didn't do your research. Admit it and move on. Tariffs, for those of you still out here Googling, are basically taxes on import, but guess who actually pays those taxes? We do. The companies pass those costs right down to us consumers. So when that $5 wig on Temu jumps to $25, don't look around like it's some big mystery. You voted for this. Those $2.50 hats y'all got off of Shein for the Beyonce concert, oh, they going up. Those 43-cent TikTok shirts y'all be wearing out and about at the clubs and everywhere, get ready to pay Walmart prices for the same low-quality junk. Congrats, child. That Trump era ignorance is expensive. Let's take it back to Trump's first term. The U.S.-China trade war. Oh, y'all remember that? I know a lot of people forgot a lot after the calamity of his COVID response, but that's neither here nor there. He slapped tariffs on Chinese goods, and China clapped back harder than an auntie at a family reunion. China clapped back harder than a church mother on Easter Sunday reading Bible verses. Soybeans, gone. China took that business right to Brazil and never looked back. And those farmers filing for bankruptcy faster than MAGA flags disappeared after the election. And what did those same farmers do this election? Yeah, they still voted for him, because apparently losing your livelihood wasn't enough of a wake-up call. Trump didn't just fumble the bag, he set it on fire and blamed Obama. And y'all bought it. I remember a time when presidents actually said the buck stops here, but I guess we're not doing that anymore. But I digress. No, I think I'll stay right there because this pattern of self-destruction isn't new. From the Bush administration's failures leading up to 9/11 and the Iraq War and Afghanistan War to Trump's trade war, the GOP has consistently escaped accountability. While marginalized groups, black communities, immigrants, and low-income workers bear the brunt of this damage because systemic racism runs so deep that voters who consistently supported the Bush administration, consistently supported the Trump administration, consistently vote for GOP senators and congressmen, they refuse to admit that they got it wrong. And before you even begin to say, but both sides, but the Democrats are no better, name a time when a Democrat messed up the economy as bad as those two administrations. I'll wait. Well, given that y'all didn't know what a tariff was before the election, I think I don't have all of that time to wait. Moving right along. And I think it would be quite precocious of me not to mention not only did you not do your research on the mandate, but Republicans are counting on you not doing your research, okay? They're going to say that they can do a lot of things because they have a mandate, and they don't. The math was simple. Kamala Harris had 49-point-something% of the popular vote, and Donald Trump barely had 50%. It was 50% on the dot, okay? So let's not fall for the illusion of a governing mandate, like y'all fair for the China will pay for the tariffs, okay? And yet, the same folks who voted for him are the ones crying about tariffs, inflation, and healthcare cuts. Honey, darling, sweetie pie, you're not mad about tariffs. You're mad the leopard came for your face after you invited it in, okay? You're mad that the people you thought would be hurt or put in their place with a Trump win aren't tearing at their hairs and foaming at the mouth. No, Trumpers, that's more of your thing, okay? We don't do that over here. But I think the expectation that needs to be set with the American people is that other countries are not going to continue to take bullshit from the United States. I mean, with tariff and their trade war with the U.S., they actually won. okay? And look who just showed up to the party, Mexico. Yes, they finally showed up. Shout out to the new Mexican woman president. She said, cool, we'll do like, kind, and quality. We'll do the same. She said that we'll raise tariffs as well, as they should, because outside of California, the #1 producer of produce for the U.S. is Mexico. She also said, you want to expel and deport Mexican migrant workers from the U.S.? No problem. We'll expel American citizens who came here to live. We'll go ahead and get them on out of here, okay? This isn't the 1990s where that was the last period where Americans actually made things and built things and exported more than they imported. We're living in a time period where the majority of goods we consume are imported from other countries. Components that are made for products that we do make here in the U.S., the majority of those components are made in other countries. I think the illusion of American exceptionalism is clouding the minds of a lot of Americans that think that we can do collectively anything that we want to do because we are the world's superpower. And that ideology just does not fit in a global market. If China today or tomorrow says we're cutting off all exports to the United States, we would turn into Cuba. How Cuba was stuck in the 1950s for over 40 years with no imports due to the Cuban embargo. Well, since they're taking history out of the class, let me give you a little reminder. The Cuban embargo, also known as the United States embargo against Cuba, is a comprehensive set of economic sanctions and restrictions imposed by the U.S. government on Cuba. It has been in place since the early 1960s following the Cuban Revolution and Cuba's alignment with the then Soviet Union. And I know what some of you are thinking, well, Divine, if China decides to do something like that, we can get our goods from other countries. What about Indonesia? What about Malaysia? What about India? Well, China produces a lot of material globally and for those countries as well. China, for the last 30 years, have been setting up whole cities for industrial production. A lot of those other countries just would not be able to keep up with the demand of the United States. Only China has that capability now. But if China wanted to cease all export to the U.S., we would be stuck in 2024 because it would take about 30 years for us to get to a point where we can manufacture things again. And I know I'm going to have a Trumper somewhere in their bubble blaming everything on the Democrats, blaming everything on the blue dress. Let me break it down for you. Okay? The Republican game plan has been crystal clear. Do whatever it takes to make businesses happy, no matter how many American jobs get sacrificed in the process. So we're gonna run through this history real quick. You know how I like to do. I love my receipts. Back in the 1970s to the 1980s, deregulation and union busting. Reaganomics, baby. Regulation and free markets were the name of the game. Oh, and remember when Reagan busted the air traffic controllers, that union during the PACCO strike? That wasn't just a union busting move. It was a message to all workers. You're on your own. Okay, what about the 1990s? NAFTA love affair, remember that? Sure, Bill Clinton signed it, but let's not forget how much Republicans hyped up NAFTA like it was the second coming of capitalism. They were all in on the free trade dream, and guess what happened? Jobs started packing their bags and heading to Mexico, heading to China, heading to India. Okay, and what about the good 2000s? China and the World Trade Organization, anyone? Then came George W. Bush welcoming China into the World Trade Organization like it was a VIP club. But here's the gag. That move flooded the U.S. market with cheap goods and sent millions of jobs overseas. Thank you for nothing, W. Okay? America. Okay? What about the 2010s to 2020s? Oh, you know I got the receipts. The Trump tariff tango? Baby, let's go. Now here comes Trump with his America First gimmick, slapping tariffs on China and rebranding NAFTA into USMCA. Sounds good, right? But it was a mixed bag. Some jobs came back, but other jobs got hit hard with higher costs for raw materials, a lot of smoke and mirrors, really, a lot of smoke, not much fire. You couldn't toast a slice of bread with that heat. Okay, now that was the Republican recipe: deregulation, globalization, and empty promises. Now, I will be the first to admit the Democrats, yeah, they have some issues too, but their issues deal with unions, globalization, and trying to fix the mess from the Republican administrations, okay? The Democrats, on the other hand, want you to believe they're the party of the people, and at times they were. But then they drank the globalization Kool-Aid, and the cracks started to show. Okay, 1950s to 1970s, the unions were strong. Okay, Democrats stood shoulder to shoulder with unions, higher wages, better benefits, you name it, you claim it. But let's be real, even in their prime, they couldn't stop the global economy from creeping in. Okay, the 1990s, back to Clinton and the NAFTA pivot, this is where things went off the rails. Clinton signed NAFTA into law, selling it as a win-win for everyone. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Manufacturing jobs vanished faster than a paycheck at a Vegas casino. Now, we were allowed to save face under the Obama administration. Why? Because Obama tried to clean up the mess with the auto industry bailouts during the 2008 financial crisis, getting us back to a sound financial standing, okay, from that calamitous George W. Bush administration, okay? He saved some jobs, props for saving some jobs, but the one issue he needed to fix that he didn't was the trade deficits or standing up to China. It just wasn't enough. Don't get me wrong, it got our economy back together, okay? But none of those other individuals had as much success as Joe Biden's bounce back in 2020, okay? With the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, Democrats were finally putting their money where their mouth was, okay? Investing in green energy and domestic manufacturing. But America decided to go backwards. America decided we want another tariff war, okay? So you want another tariff war, you got it. And don't think tariffs are the end of it. Tariffs are just the beginning. This is just Act 1 of Find Out season. Next up, Medicare cuts, smaller Social Security checks. Prices will not be coming down, they'll be going up. Gutted school funding. But hey, keep voting against your own interests. I'm sure it'll work out eventually. And it won't. Why? Because this all boils down to one thing. Republicans aren't used to consequences. They're not used to being held to account. They haven't been held to account since Richard Nixon. They got away with the Bush-era weapons of mass destruction lies, the failure leading up to 9/11, the Trump administration fumbling of the COVID-19 response with around-the-clock lies. But here's the gag. It's time to burn the lifeboats. Stop letting them skate by. Call them out every time. One of my favorite podcasts, The Professional Left, with Blue Gal and Driftglass. Okay, you can find them on YouTube. They coined the phrase burn the capes. Okay, they also coined the phrase I'm an independent, and quite a few other phrases they really don't get credit for that mainstream media steals from them. But the phrase burn the lifeboats came about because during the Bush administration, because all of those Christian conservatives, compassionate conservatives that voted for George Bush during that second term, it got real bad financially. So all of a sudden now they're the Tea Party, and oh, I didn't agree with the tax cuts. I'm an independent, and oh, it was always an excuse, and mainstream media allowed them to get away with it. And guess what? Because mainstream media took their eye off of the issue, so did the American people. So these people were constantly able to rebrand. That's how the Tea Partiers became the Trumpers. Why? Because no one held them accountable. You see, the media, they didn't do any investigative journalism or nothing. I mean, it seems like we're trapped in a episode of Scooby-Doo, and what the media is supposed to do is lift up the hood and say, hey, you're not an independent, you're old dirty, dusty ass Republican. They never do that. The one thing that they do is they scream out, both sides do it, aka both sidism, yet another term coined by Driftglass and Blue Gal over at the Professional Left podcast. It's time to stop saving people who refuse to learn from their mistakes. It is time to stop saving people who don't want to be saved. Trump supporters are out here lying about their so-called research while Googling what are tariffs, Googling do I rescind my vote, Googling will I be deported the day after the election. enough is enough. Stop giving these people outs and start holding them accountable. And this isn't just about tariffs, it's about healthcare, it's about education, it's about immigration, it's about basic human rights, okay? Trump's policies have hurt everyone, but especially immigrants and marginalized communities. Whether it's deportation threats or his stance on Palestine, his agenda has always been about harm and division. And we felt, not we, you Trumpers, fell for the bullshit again. Yet some of you are still shocked. Why? The man told you exactly who he was, and you believed every cracked out, roided out, popular white male incel podcaster vouching for this man when they too knew the truth, that this man was a barely literate, special need, totally challenged, deranged, dementia-addled man who wouldn't know the difference between the definition of a tariff and the recipe for chocolate chip cookies if he had to read it. Moving right along. But this is for the Trumpers. Dear Trumpers, I'm gonna need you to hold this L. You gotta hold it. To all the Trump supporters now complaining, hold that L and hold it high. I know some equate an L to a loss or a loser, but an L can actually be a lesson in some circumstances. This is not one of those circumstances, short bus. You threw rationality out the window when you cast your vote. You didn't do your research. You didn't know what tariffs were. You didn't think about how losing health care, Medicare, or even your Social Security checks would play out. And now you're mad. Nah, you voted for that. You had your MAGA hats and your Trump flags flying high, but as soon as reality hit, those flags came down faster than a bad lace front. Those flags came down faster than a $2 whore promised to tip. And I wish y'all would continue to wear your MAGA hat. That way I know who the hell to stay away from. I don't want you smiling in my face with your shit-eating grins. I don't want you to come talking to me about, oh, it was the tweets. Oh, I'm an independent. Y'all know how y'all like to do that. Rebrand, right? Yeah, that bullshit stops. So here's the deal. The game plan is simple. Don't just ignore Trumpers, confront them. When they try to complain, hit them with concepts of thoughts and prayers. You got what you voted for. Because at this point, sympathy is on back order and can only be ordered once every 8 years. And for the rest of us, stay vigilant. Stay away from mainstream media that prioritized Joe Biden having a bad debate, but was silent as the grave about Donald Trump's tariff plan. At this juncture, it is unwise for anyone to believe that the media, and by the media, I mean CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, Fox News, child, they still allowed to put news in their title. I think it's unrational for anyone to believe that those organizations are going to hold accountable Donald Trump, his supporters, his cabinet, or the people that voted for him. So it's up to platforms like this to tell the truth. Let's keep the conversation going, y'all. Until next time, stay informed, stay ready, and stay unapologetically real. Well, it looks like our time is up. I thank you for making the time to go through it to the end with me. Like, share, and subscribe, please, and thank you.